welcome to Behind the Amish Curtain. I'm Jenny, and Eldon's sitting over here.
Hello!
I just wanted to give a quick intro on this video. This was just a spontaneous conversation that broke out between Eldon and his cousin Ellen. They are like second or third cousin. I think they're like third cousins. But anyway, we're pretty close friends with them, and so I just decided to record it. So it seems a little bit disjointed maybe, just because it was a spontaneous conversation, and so they were just talking about various people and the community, the Amish community, where they came from. So Eldon was just sharing his experiences about the Amish community. So Eldon, I don't know if there's anything else you want to describe on that.
No, I don't have anything else.
We'll just see it in the video. What about this book again?
This book is a song book, and in the back of the song book, they have registros, which is called register, which tells you what songs and what scriptures they're going to have every 2 weeks, from winter to summer to fall again.
So it's all laid out
It's
ahead of
all
time.
lined out, and every year they have the same thing over and over and over and over. So you never do a deep study of the Bible in the church. However, so when he gets up to preach, he wants to talk about the love of Jesus. He wants to talk about having this relationship with Jesus. You know, everything's in German. So he's trying to preach, but then he gets shut off, said, well, you can't preach like that because, well, the people are going to find something else on the other side of the fence. So, for you to preach like that is not right. You know, we can't have that.
Is he no longer allowed to preach?
No, he is now Sinnzeitstellt, which is you have to sit aside. You cannot vote. You cannot counsel. You can't have anything in the church. You can still come, but you can't be a part. So we've seen them here in Pinecraft. Here, huh?
That would be same as excommunicated.
But they did not excommunicate him yet. But yeah, they shunned him.
They silenced him.
Yeah. They have not excommunicated him and all that yet. But that's going to come once he starts going to another church. Right now, he's still coming to church.
Is the excommunication actually a process that they go through in the church where they literally vote them out?
Yeah, they basically vote them out, because if there's no proving grounds, like Uncle Jake, he just kept on shaving his beard and doing the things that he was doing that wasn't right in the eyes of the Amish church.
What a rebel.
So he was in the bond for... it was over 20 years, and he kind of bragged about it. Said, I'm in the bond, but I still go to the Amish church. I'm still doing a good thing, because he believes that if he wears his white shirt every day to work and his Amish pants and Amish Western jacket, he's saved. He didn't know any different, and that's how he lived his life.
He didn't want to know any different.
Yeah. So for me to say that people get excommunicated because they are born again, most times it's hard to stay in an Amish church and have fire and the love of Jesus. Yeah. So it's hard to stay in there, just like for me. How could I stay in the Amish church when I know that God doesn't want you to be in this church where you're at, when you have all these doctrines and all these rules and all this stuff that they make up on their own, saying you can't farm with the tractor and you can't farm with air tires, your wagons have to be all Dutch rubber. Where did you read that in the Bible? Why do you have to make work so much harder when there's stuff that is convenient for you to make it easier? Why not live life for God with the easier life? Why go out there and kill yourself? That's not who God created you to be.
That's not going to save you.
Yeah. And so Eli, he loves to share about the love of Jesus. And for other people, it's like, oh no, you got to be hush about it. Or when you're in the Amish church, that's the first thing that you hear in the Amish church is, it's not about what was preached today. It's about how much did the beans and how much was the hay and what was the highest price of horses. And it's talked about the dollar. I've noticed that over and over again. And so when I would come to the people after church and we would talk about God, then they had questions about me. Are you looking for greener grass on the other side of the fence? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking for greener grass, because if it's going to feed me to get closer to God, that's what I want. But if it's going to to drag me away from it because I got to follow all these doctrines and man-made rules and beliefs. I don't want no part of it. So to say that somebody gets excommunicated because they get born again, I would agree. They probably do when they go somewhere that they get truth.
Okay, so when you hear Joe Keim and Eli Yoder, that Ruben Stutzman, there's a couple more. Ephraim, whatever his last name is, from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think I've seen that
I think
too.
a lot of those are from the Schwarzentrooper Amish.
Mm-hmm.
And if they find out, some of the more liberal churches may not, but some of the very strict Amish, if they find out that their people are born again, you're gone. You're excommunicated.
Yeah.
And they don't want you back because you're going to be an influence to the other people.
And Joe had that in his book. He actually said that his community said that they are going to turn him over to Satan.
Yeah, which is against the word of God. Because how can you put somebody or pray that they're turned over to Satan? Which, in my way of thinking, they couldn't do that to me. They can think about it. They can pray that way, but they can't control me because I'm his favorite. I'm God's favorite.
There's only one judge.
Yes, there's only one judge. Back to what I was going to share about, each church has different rules and regulations. Kind of for an example where Eli was saying that his dad got buried outside of the cemetery. Well, I don't think they would do that in Illinois because Martha married a divorced man. And she was even divorced too. And they buried her in the Amish cemetery. So
Because she dressed Amish.
I don't know if that was it or not.
So maybe that was the reason.
She was divorced and married a divorced man. There was another one about the doctrines. Each church district, like in Indiana, has their own rules, what you can have, what you can't have. There was somebody else that left the Amish that I was going to give an example of that. But how they could put somebody out of the Amish church because they're born again, I would like to know where they have scripture.
They don't.
And I know they come back always saying, well, you promised to stay in the Amish church. No, I didn't promise. I promised to help, build the church with God in the center of it, not with man in the center of it.
But isn't that the actual vow that you give when you join the Amish church, that you promise to stay
in the Amish church as long as I live? Yeah. Helverode en arbeide in die gemeente, as long as du lebst.
As long as you live.
As long as you live. So I don't agree with that. I absolutely do not agree with that. And why people continue to live that atmosphere and still they proclaim to be Christians, like I had talked about earlier. There's a lot of people that want help, but they don't have no clue how to go about to get help. They have no clue to cry out. And still the Bible is clear. Like in Chronicles 7:14, where he says, if my people, who is his people? And he goes on to say, if my people which are called by my name, they're Christians, right? Mm-hmm. Would humble themselves and seek my face and pray, I will heal their land. I will heal their diseases. Mm-hmm. But we don't know how to do that. Because what we need to do is, we can't, farm with the tractor. We can't have air tires. This is what gets us to heaven, according to the Amish. Well, that's not true. That's not true. It's not you doing all those odds and end work or all those things that you think is too convenient that will get you to heaven. It's you having that relationship with Jesus Christ. And when you don't have that relationship, with Jesus, then I question your walk with the Lord. Back to the poor kids that got to suffer because that generational curse gets handed down and nobody knows how to cut that off. And back where, we got together and we had a family night, whatever, and we sat down and discussed of different things that had happened in the family. And we don't want to go through this. We want to break this off. We want to stop this. And
your siblings wanted to too.
Yeah, we wanted to stop this. So, and that's something that I share with my kids is what happened to Grandpa's dad, to Albert Helmuth, and to my dad, and their grandpa, whatever. And I'm not scared, even though I'm kind of ashamed to say it, but we need to speak those things out and say, this is what could happen. This is where it needs to be cut off. And so when you guys come to a point in life where you're depressed, angry, bitter, hatred, whatever it may be, speak out to God about it. Don't stay in that mode, but speak it out to God. God wants your pain. It's a matter of you speaking to Him. I mean, the Bible's clear. Ask, and it shall be given. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be open. But the problem is, we don't ask. The problem is, we don't seek. Because we think, I've got an amount, I can do this.
Well, we don't open the door to let Him in.
Isn't that the truth?
Well, the other thing that you say, it's a generational thing, goes from one generation to the next. They don't know how to stop it.
Yep.
It's not that they don't know how to stop it. They don't stop it because it's easier to sweep it under the rug.
Yep.
And keep it hidden.
Hide
So
it.
if you keep it hidden, then nobody will know about it, and it's just easier to move on that way instead of stopping the cycle.
Yep.
Well, and is some of it that they don't want to bring the police into the Amish community, so they don't want that
They don't want
outside involvement, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like one of the videos we watched. They were sitting there talking about how Eli Yoder, he was sitting there talking about how they were interfering with the firemen. There was a house that was burning
Oh, I
down,
kinda remember
and the
that.
Amish they weren't doing anything at the time, and the Amish were having a fit because they weren't putting the water on the fire.
They were fighting the.
And they were
The firemen.
trying to grab the hoses from the firemen to put the water on the house, and they wanted that to be saved, and the firemen had to explain to them, we can't do that because if there's one of our firemen in there and we spray the water on the house, it could hurt them or kill them. But they were like that's why they want things to happen a certain way, and if it doesn't happen the way they think they want it to happen, then that's where they have the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want the police involved because it would be easier for them to sweep it under the rug than for the police to be involved.
Yep, and yeah, it's sad that it is like that. I can name a couple of things that happened that were mentioned in the church that I'm like, but we're all told to, everybody's hush hush about this because we don't want the outside people to find out about it for them to come in and do something. But yeah, there's different cases that happened to a bishop, got swept under the rug. We don't want nobody else. He now confessed his sin. Well, did he really confess his sin, or was he caught? And now, he's got to confess, or otherwise he's going to lose his position. Yeah, that's happened way too many times. Some of them did get in trouble. Some got turned in, and I'm not sure who would have turned those in, but yeah, you'd be surprised how many kids that get abused.
And the bishops and the deacons and the preachers know about it, and they hide it.
Oh yeah. Yep. And as long as you're Amish, they'll come and talk and say, hey, this is what we heard and this is how we found it, and you need to confess. And some will deny it, kind of like my cousin's situation. She denied it for the longest time, and my brother used to go visit her and say, hey, this is what was brought to our attention, and this is what they're saying that you and this other guy did, and you guys were caught, driving around or whatever. And she would deny it, literally deny it.
Very.
Yeah, and so it would continue on, but yeah, there's a lot of those things.
And sometimes the victim they're not able to get help because they're covering it up, they're hiding it.
Because
So there's
sometimes the victim was told it's their fault.
that too.
Or they don't know that it's a problem. That's a lifestyle that they're brought up in. They don't know any different.
What an awful
Apparently, you
Trap
have
to be in.
videos as well.
from Eli.
Oh, probably
Them
not.
and Joe Keim, and
Yeah,
they had a conference in March this year
yeah,
called Stepping Out of the Boat.
yeah.
And we heard a lot on there too of stuff that went on.
Yeah, there's so much that is happening, and that's what I like. The whole point, I say I like. That's what my whole point is behind the Amish curtain, because there's so many things that happen behind the Amish curtain that outside world doesn't know about it.
Well, I mean, you know what happened to Eldon? So you don't even know what happened to Eldon.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Eldon was molested by his brother.
Your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean. There's so many things that take place in an Amish home, where there's so many things that are hidden, from brothers molesting their own sisters to uncle molesting their own
Nieces.
niece.
What, is your brother still Amish?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
He,
Because he should have.
he doesn't live anymore, but he confessed it to me like 2 weeks before he passed on, that he's sorry for what all he did, but he apologized, but he never did to my other brother. My other brother didn't come around very often, and so he never made things right. But we had people that, I have a brother that doesn't even believe me
Yeah.
that I got molested, and he doesn't believe my brother Will either. And it's like Will said, well, there's somebody that knows the truth, even though you don't want to believe it, which my brother is married to the brother that did it, sister. That tells you something there. But however, yeah,
That
it's
brother doesn't believe you.
no, he doesn't believe me that it happened. We're just saying this.
Does he not want to believe it?
Right. Or he's just in denial because of the
He's just sweeping under the rug.
relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, and it's like I said, there is so many things that take place in an Amish home that I've learned over the years, and have grieved a lot, and especially when Mom was on her deathbed, because I would always try to ask Mom, so have you had that relationship with Jesus? Do you know who Jesus is? And she would always come back and say, well, we go to church every Sunday, Eldon. We go to church every Sunday, Eldon. And I'm like, but that's not what I'm trying to ask you. That's not what, the point
That
is.
tells you she doesn't know.
Yeah, and so it was hard for me to hear her pass on, even though I told her before she passed, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it was, that I still loved her. And she squeezed my hand. But it's all those things that took place from my childhood up, and that's why we're writing a book.
You are
kinda-
writing a book?
Mm-hmm. With the same title.
Same title, Behind the Amish Curtain, because there's so many things that took place as a child growing up. Yeah, so there was lots of abuse, verbally and mentally, and that's where I would always say, whenever I get married, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get away from here, and I'm not going to have that kind of life. I'm going to treat my wife, and yeah, in a way that is caring and loving to God. And it takes work to have that. However, my mother would always say, you have to forgive, and this happened one time, it'll be okay, and because there's times I couldn't sleep. I would come down to Mother and say, is everybody okay? I would wake up during the night because I knew back when I went to bed, they were screaming at each other. And I have seen things happen while we were right there in front, let alone hearing them scream at each other when it's time to go to bed. So I would eventually fall asleep, but then I would wake up and I would go down and ask Mom, is everybody okay? She's like, yeah, go back to bed. Go back to bed. Well, later I found out that, Dad wasn't even in bed. I actually walked right beside him. He's out on the couch sleeping. So, yeah, there was so many times of what is the word that I want to call it? Not malfunction, but dysfunctional.
There was
in the house. Where we would sit at the table and Mom would be accusing Dad of doing this and doing that and not feeding the cattle properly. He went over to this place because he wanted to flirt with this woman and it was just one thing
That's
after
not
another.
something that should have ever been.
And so we
table
knew that
with
it
all the
wasn't
children.
good, and Dad would get so upset. Why do you talk about this stuff on the table? And I remember him getting up, and I don't know if you remember these big lamps that we would hang from the ceiling.
They were gas, right?
Yeah, and I remember him getting up and just getting hold of that thing and just throwing it on the...
And it was on.
No, it was out. This was during the
Because if
day.
it would have been on, you would have had a fire.
fire.
Well, we had a refrigerator that was right beside it. And yeah, luckily it didn't bust open. But yeah, so it was a lot of those tension moments that... Yeah, I mean, you wanted to be loved. And Mom was always the first one to show that love, but you knew something was going on that wasn't right. And so when my brother Dennis, when he was first diagnosed with being diabetic, we thought no, that wasn't the first time. Yeah, it was the first time that we called the ambulance out, and we thought we lost him because he tried to over swallow his tongue. And so he was having a not an insulin reaction or maybe a low sugar reaction, and he went into a coma, whatever.
Diabetic coma.
Yeah, and so in that time frame, here was Mom and Dad not seeing eye to eye. They were mad at each other, and here the ambulance was coming out, and us kids were all just kind of sprawled out, and we were hurt, to know that our brother's going to be taken in an ambulance, and
They should have been coming together.
yeah, and there's a lot of that, and it's not just our family, but other families, neighboring families. So eventually, hopefully, one day we'll get this book done. That kind of explains from my childhood life to being a teenager. When I was a teenager, I was so glad to get out of the house. I told Mom I'd never want to come back, even though I was a mom bopple, because I would help Mom in the house from cooking and cleaning and laundry and all this stuff. I was the girl because I was born on her birthday. I still wanted to get out of the house when I was a teenager. When I was 16, I'm out of here. I'm so done with this. But still, I moved out for 2 weeks and I couldn't handle it. And I was coming home to Mom crying again. And I wanted to be at home again. But it's just one of those things that when you get hurt, when you're down in a depressed stage of not knowing what Mom and Dad are going to do or what's going to happen, you would come home and you would hear somebody crying, and it was like, what? This is 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and you would hear somebody crying. And I mean, this gives you a creepy feeling. Even though I'm not necessarily in my right mind, because I had some alcohol and maybe even some drugs at the time, and still you would hear Mother crying on the outside of the house. And you're like...
She was inside, but you were outside and you heard her.
No, she was
outside
outside of the house. And I went to the corner. I knew it was my mother crying, because I would know her cry. I've heard her cry before. And so I walk over to the corner of the two buildings after I had my horse unhitched. And I walked over there, and it was sad. I mean, she was literally just losing it. Well, me, what can I do? I tried to hold her a little bit, saying it's going to be okay, but I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know what to do. I was a teenager. I had no clue. So all that stuff kind of went on, and even to back it up, Sunday evenings we'd be out there, playing soccer as kids, or softball, or football, whatever it may be. And then we would come into the house, and we're like, okay, it's time to go to bed, but where's Mom? We would always say good night, Mom, or Dad, or whoever. But where's Mom? And she was nowhere to be found. So we would ask Dad, so where's Mom? I don't know. And so it's all that fear that was built into us, not knowing what's going to happen. Why is it like this? We never understood that. We didn't know what was going on. And we eventually kind of thought, well, this is kind of natural, but, it's painful. Because you didn't know what was going to happen. Did Mom leave? Where's she at? It's dark outside. Where would she be at? So on up into my teenage life, in Rumspringen and running around. Still battle with that. Still the thought of coming home and you hearing somebody cry, or sometimes it was even screaming when you came home early in the night.
Was she crying for various reasons, or was it usually the same reason?
It was because she was betrayed. And I didn't know that till years later, after we were married. There's a lot of those things that I didn't know until after I was married. So, and I don't even like to think on that whole thing, because just the pain of what Mother went through, and then what Dad went through, and how it all...
But your mom found out about it.
Yeah, Mom found out. Well, Dad wanted to confess it in the church, and here again, that whole thing was just a mess when they decided to take it to church, because Mom felt like the whole public needs to know about it. Let's take this to church. And so Dad did. He said, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll do whatever it takes. And so Dad, he took it to church, and they announced it in front of the church that this is what he did. And so he had to leave the church, and then they counseled with the church. And so I think he was out for, 3 or 4 weeks. And I kind of remember when he was out, but I didn't know what happened until years later, because us kids, we don't find out. That's just supposed to be for the elders or the members. And so that was kind of, strange for Dad to be on the outside. And we're like, why are you doing out here? You should be in there. But see, we didn't know, but until, years later is when we found all this stuff out.
So they put them outside. I don't know, for some reason I thought it was figurative. But they're literally, they literally have to sit physically outside the church during services.
No, they go outside when they counsel. When he confesses his thing in the church, the bishop gets up and said, this is what this brother, Ralph Yoder, said, that, this is what he done, and he's sorry, and wants to do whatever the church wants him to do. And then he's got to leave the ground. Well, they'll ask him if this was said right, then you can leave the grounds or leave the house.
You're supposed to leave the building so the rest of the church can vote and decide.
Can counsel and decide, do we want to excommunicate?
To decide what they're going to do with him.
Okay, and then if he is excommunicated for 3 weeks or whatever it is, what does that look like?
He just can't be in the church to counsel, and they probably wouldn't ask him to sing a song. He just wouldn't have no part. He can still come.
So he can, okay.
And you can't eat with him.
Yeah, you have to be in a separate table. Most times you'll go home, or you'll eat out on the buggy if it's at family.
Okay.